Hello, everyone, and welcome to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Today is an exciting day. We are doing a live Q&A. So get your questions ready. And before we do that, I'm going to play this intro.
This for the queens, sisters manifesting their dreams. Get your cream by any means and beam with self-esteem. Beauty supreme and booty walk so mean. The way you fit in them jeans, you eat your cornbread and greens. Dance or a doctor, red wine or vodka. Redesign your spot and redefine your mantra. Retwist your locks and realign your chakras. Doing your squats and getting closer to God, huh? Brunching with your squad or taking a girl's trip. Adjust your crown, you God's gift to the world, sis. Celestial body, drink your water. Meditate, sun-kissed goddess, heavenly order. Levitate, tribe of Ashanti, black girl magic, melanin popping, whether you ratchet or lavish, whether you bougie or savage, you a gift and a treasure. You got to love a black girl getting a shift together. Black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, man. These black girls are getting a shift together. These black girls getting a shift together, dog.
Hello, welcome back to Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. This is a podcast about relevant topics, especially for Black women, because we can relate to how we relate to each other. But each week, I promise to deliver relevant topics that can help aid in this healing. All right, we're going to get right into it. As I mentioned before, we are doing a live Q&A. This is the first time I'm doing this, so I'm very excited. And if anyone feels comfortable, if you want to come on live and ask our beautiful therapist, Cerita Yvonne, if you want to ask her any questions, or if you feel a lot more comfortable in typing them in the comment section, it is okay. I want you to do whatever you feel comfortable with. Just remember that this is a safe space. Speaking of Cerita, I'm going to bring her right out of the waiting room. Hello, Cerita.
Hello. Thank you again for having me. I'm excited about this.
Yes, this is very exciting. Oh, we already have a hello.
Hello.
Blind guy and his wife, greetings. I don't have my weekly meeting, so yay, I'm here.
Yes, we're grateful that you're spending some time with us. So we're going to do our best to make it worth your while.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How was your day today?
Thank you for asking. Or were you talking about blind guy?
Queen is always good. She stays on the road and she's an actress, and I know she's good. How are you doing, Cerita?
Thank you so much for asking. I think that sometimes when we're good, when we are on our healing journey, people can assume that we're always fine. So it's great when people just take the time to check in. But I am well. I'm so excited preparing for this challenge. I'm loving that we have an opportunity to create a safe space to have these conversations. So I appreciate you. How are you?
I'm well. My body's a little taxed from my workout, but you know what? My body's craving it. It needed it. So here I am.
That's part of getting your shift together. So
internally and externally.
Absolutely.
So let's get into it. But before anyone listening, there's a lot of people coming in. Please type where you're tuning in from. Give me your state, your city. And if it's a replay, please make sure and type replay in the comments. And again, if you have any questions, I will drop a link. And if you want to come on live and ask Cerita any questions, respectfully, we do not mind. And if you don't want to do that, then you can always go in the comment section. Okay, East Oakland, California, in Georgia, already checking in. Oh, Atlanta, I'm loving it.
Yeah.
All right. So last week we did a topic on toxic mother-daughter relationships, the trauma that can come from it, and how it looks. So we're going to do a brief overview, if you don't mind. You want to do that?
Absolutely.
So we'll just talk about how a mother wound can show up. And I love this topic because I didn't realize, even as of 6 months ago, because the healing always continues, of how many blind spots I had with my mother wound.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I didn't want to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think that when we talk about mother wounds, we're really talking about attachment wounds, wounds as it relates to bonding and feeling safe and secure in relationships. And
Mm.
so one of the questions I saw in the comment section was, "Oh, so your relationship with a mother can impact your adult relationships? Your relationship with your mother actually determines your adult relationships." And
Woo!
so if we have a lack of awareness, if we're not doing the healing work, if we are not getting to know ourselves, then our relationship with our mother will absolutely play out. It will determine who you are attracted to. Your relationship with your mother absolutely shapes your self-esteem and your confidence. And so a lot of us don't see the connection between how our relationship with our mother is showing up because we're trying to fix and deal and look for issues and solutions in our present day life. That's
Wow.
why we feel stuck.
Wow. That's something else. So let's talk about how it can manifest and how it looks with a mother wound. Not being your full self because you do not want to threaten others. We'll put a pin in that because that sounds like boundaries to me. Having a high tolerance for poor treatment from others. Mm. Emotional caretaking, Black superwoman complex, and feeling competitive with other women. Can we talk about that? I meant to ask you that on the last. Uh, yeah, maybe I don't know if that's a blind spot for me, but I don't know. I've never experienced that, but if you don't mind.
Absolutely. I think feeling competitive is something that is we see that around here. And I
Wow.
think that go ahead, you want to say something?
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
I think that that is common. I think it can be very subtle in how women can be competitive and catty with one another and judgmental and like low key shaming, low key dissing, competing with looks for men. We know that women compete for men, and there are some
Oh,
influences out here who's saying that women need to be competing. That's like that's what you do. Like men compete for women, we need to be competing against one another. But I think it's in us, it's natural. Well, I won't say it's natural, I would say that it's cultivated in us for us to compete in a way, because see, we're also shaped to be people pleasers. So the way that we compete may not be as direct as men, but yeah, we do, because we want to look the best. And this is why you'll see or hear women talking about women being jealous or catty
mm,
or talking behind one another's backs. You know what I'm saying?
mhm.
Spreading rumors. These things are, unfortunately, they happen frequently with women and women struggling to have secure, healthy relationships with one another.
Okay, makes sense. So yeah, I've seen it. Oh, what were you about to say?
I just want to add one thing. I heard Beyonce's mother in an interview talking about how one of the reasons Beyonce is successful is because she wants the best of the best. And that a lot of women and a lot of artists, they don't want other women who can potentially outshine them. So they don't want the women with the baddest bodies or the best talent. But she said, I taught Beyonce that basically you're not in competition with anybody but yourself. And she has embraced that, and it's helped her to shine because
Wow.
she doesn't compete with anyone in her, you know what I'm saying, anyone in her sphere or on her team, or apparently, period. She
Right.
sets the standard, and that has helped her to shine and for women to love her. So I just thought that was very interesting.
You know what you just said? I love she set the standard.
But
Her
she was taught
standard.
that by her mother.
Wow.
See?
There you go. All right, everyone. I just dropped the link. So if you want to come on, the link is live. You can just click the button and you won't be appearing on screen immediately. I will let you in, but feel free, feel free. So while we wait on that, let's finish this list. Self-sabotage. How does that look?
Self-sabotage can look all kinds of ways. It could look like, because see, it all goes back to shame and perfectionism, right? Which, when our parent is emotionally immature, that is the resulting wound. So if I'm not nurtured and guided and supported the way that I need, I'm going to feel or not even recognize that there's this not enoughness in me. So I can sabotage myself. I can sabotage myself from my dreams, from my goals, from stepping into my purpose, from relationships, all because I have a deep sense of unworthiness that
Mm,
came from this open wound from the way that I was parented or the way my mother treated me. Does that make
mm.
sense?
It does. It does. Being overly rigid and dominating.
Hmm,
Ooh.
that's a control freak, and a lot of us are control freaks. And some of us are controlled because we were controlled, because we never had the opportunity to really express or experience agency, making decisions for yourself, being heard, allowed to be assertive and be autonomous from your mother. And I think that the way that shows up in relationships is that we want to control other people, and some of us are
Yes.
afraid that we will be consumed in relationships, or afraid that somebody trying to control me. You trying to control me? And so, in an effort to protect ourselves, we can become very rigid. And being rigid means that you're not flexible in how you respond. You're not
Mm,
flexible in how you think. You just have automatic reactions that are based in your trauma wounds, versus being able to be present and to take time to sit with yourself, to acknowledge what you think and what the other person is saying, so that you can respond with intention instead of
mm.
reactions.
I love that. It sounds like a person would have either black or white thinking.
That's exactly it. And a lot of it, if you ain't been to Love University, you might not know what that is. But the black and white thinking is the cognitive distortion. It is a childlike way of thinking and seeing the world that is based on very rigid and limited possibilities, like either or, right or wrong. And it's never just black and white, there are always gray areas. But we have to develop ourselves emotionally and psychologically in order to be able to see all the nuance that life is.
The nuance. Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. That's good right there. That's real good. Let's see. Let's read a few more comments. I see them all coming in. Um,
Mm.
we can.
Can I
Well,
comment about Black Guy? I see his comments here.
yeah, I was just so blind guy said my mom didn't control us, but the pen. Ooh, I'm triggered. But the Pentecostal church did. That church shame and guilt was the worst parent ever. Before we go into that, let me tell you why. I'm going to share a quick story why that is extremely triggering to me because I grew up, it wasn't in a Pentecostal church, but I just found out I knew something was always wrong. It just didn't feel right. And I found out last year that the church that I went to was a cult. And the church had a school. So, oh, I'm so triggered right now. I'm just having all these aha moments. So, whatever was going on at home, it continued on at church and school. So, it was 7 days nonstop. So, Quita, blind guy, his wife, I feel you with that comment right there. Like, I really feel it in my chest. And thank you for sharing that. I just had to put that out there. Go ahead, Cerita.
Thank you. I think this is one of the more
Woo.
traumatic experience that some people can struggle to express, or they may stay silent about, because fear of judgment. And the reality is, when it comes to religion and spirituality, it has such a it plays such a foundational role in many people's lives that it can be hard for some people to believe that people can use their religion to abuse other people, or that the way that they were raised around religion can feel traumatic to a child. And it can, because what we
Yes.
know about human development, and there were people who will argue with me on this, and you're entitled to your opinion, but but we have to recognize that when you are a whole soul, okay, a whole soul, that you have a desire to experience, to explore, to express, to evolve, to grow, to question. Like, what 2 year old, 3 year old, don't question, like on a regular. Like, that's
Exactly.
a part of their makeup. And so it depends on how the parental figures apply the spiritual beliefs. Because if it is shutting the child down, ignoring the child, shaming the child, guilting the child, that absolutely will result in a traumatic wound. Because there is a way that we can parent, that a healthy, emotionally healthy parent can correct the child without emotionally punishing the child. Because if you're shaming and guilting, what will happen is the child takes that in through black and white thinking that you mentioned earlier. And the message that the child receives is, I am defective, I am broken. Because
Yeah.
as a child, they cannot follow these rigid rules because it's not even in their developmental makeup. They can't do it because they don't have the
Mhm.
ability to think like adults do. So they're not going to get everything right according to rigid spiritual laws and rules, unless they absolutely sacrifice themselves and their ability to think for themselves.
Exactly. When I hear you talk, I can relate because there was no autonomy whatsoever in the house. And then again, when you're in church 7 days a week, plus the Bible study, then the school was inside of the church, there was rigid black and white thinking. There was no autonomy at all. And I was going on what they said. And I'm sure the sisters in the chat, put a one in the comment section if that sounds familiar as well.
And see, the challenge is, if a child growing up in this kind of situation or parenting structure, they're trying to be good, right? They're trying to please the adults. They're trying to please, God, as God was presented to them. And
Mm-hmm.
so they have no sense of self. And so it's not uncommon that when they become adults and they get into relationships, they will not find that partner who is just like them, trying to please, trying to be good. They will find a partner who will abuse them, who will suppress them, because they don't set boundaries, they don't speak up for themselves. And so they will attract the people who are the very opposite of the things that they value. And they will
Mm.
struggle with that because they have no practice in communicating or protecting themselves from it.
Speaking of communicating, let's talk about how mothers communicate to their daughters about, well, let me back up. Mothers who have unprocessed trauma put their own beliefs, almost like a downfall, on their daughters, and they're communicating all these negative things and about, just say, men and relationships, but the situations never happen. It's like you're already putting them on high alert. And then we walk around wondering why sisters are all rigid and ready in fight mode all the time.
um, that this is one of the insidious invisible scars of trauma, because if a mother has had bad experiences or has been abused by men in an effort to protect her child, she may teach her child to fear men or to unconsciously disrespect men, or she may be like overt or explicit with it, like, men ain't that we've heard with some women say. And so their unprocessed trauma becomes the foundation for the child.
Mm-hmm.
So basically they take on, because this is what we do, they take on all of the mother's trauma, and then they filter and view their experiences through mama's trauma. But see, the problem is that the child because of the way we learn to love. Mama might think in her traumatized mind that she's doing the right thing. But what she's doing is she's setting the daughter up to repeat the cycle and to become attracted to the very thing that mama says she don't want for her daughter. Because if mama is putting that into her child, she's not just putting it into her child about men. She's also putting into her trauma responses, meaning how she might communicate, how she might feel threatened by the child's emotions or autonomy or attempt to assert herself, how she is going to have power struggles with the child based on her own trauma. Because it's
And then
not
they'll call it being disrespectful.
exactly
Wow.
that because they have a deep wound about being disrespected that is generalized to every area of their life. So
Mm.
now the child has to basically pay for the sins of the trauma and the relationship that the mother had.
Wow.
That's generational trauma.
Woo. So how can a child, adult child, or even a young adult hold that boundary with their mother?
How can an adult child hold a boundary with their mother? Well, first, the adult child has to recognize their mother as being human and not savior. Because when we're children, mother is savior, mother is everything, mother is God. Okay. And
Yes.
so when you have to first recognize the limitations of your mother, mother had trauma. Mother has a certain perspective. Mother may not know how to communicate about feelings and even understand how she's impacted you. And even if she does understand it, it might be very triggering for her because it's going to bring up a lot of stuff. And so I think as adults, we have to recognize the humanity in our parents, the limitations, and also be willing to disappoint your parents, because meaning just understanding them is important, but it's not enough to let them violate you as an adult. You have to be willing to set boundaries and hold boundaries and recognize that you holding boundaries can change the nature of the relationship, because
Right.
often it will. You have to set the standard for the level of respect that you desire and deserve, because
Right.
you're the one with the power now, and you get to decide who you invite into your life and how they'll treat you, even if they're your mother or your father or a family member.
So
You
I
get
see how. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, you get to revoke invitations if necessary.
Right. And I see how it trickles down into relationships with partners as far as
No, it
setting the
doesn't trickle
standard.
down. I think that it does a little more than trickle down. I think it will define your relationships with your partners.
Yes. A firm, a firm fissure in the ground.
Yes, because your thinking is shaped by your mother's thinking, the way that we see the world, which is why we got to do the healing work. Because if we, and let's keep it all the way real, Black women have had severe trauma for generations that was
Mhm.
never addressed, acknowledged, and we still had to keep on keeping on. And so, if we're really honest with everything that Black women had to endure, there was only so much left to give the children. And a lot of times, what was left was not that emotional support, that ability to be very patient and nurturing. It was like, no, I got to prepare you to go out in this world and survive. So we had mothers who were in survival mode who taught us how to live in survival mode.
Because doesn't this sound familiar? Oh, we don't have time for that. We got things to do around here. We got to get it done.
Always in a
Always.
rush, always. And that's because for our mothers and many generations, that's what life was. You know what I'm saying? My energy for many mothers had to be conserved by being gentle and kind to my oppressors' children. You know what I'm saying? The people that I work for, because we know Black women did a lot of domestic work. That was the major thing that we did. So we had to be mamas to our oppressors' children while they treated us like shit. And I had to be able to sustain that. Should not be able to nurture my children the same way because of what they would have to deal with in the world.
Wow.
That's a lot of mental energy that I think we don't. always understand and recognize. But it also means that we still have to hold our mothers accountable, though, now, for how they treat us.
Right.
And
Woo!
how mothers treat their children. Mothers have to hold themselves accountable now for how they treat their children. It goes both ways.
It does. We just put the ego down for a moment, and you're right, show up. So this is a live Q&A. Again, everyone, I dropped the link again in the comment section, so please feel free to come on. Just state what you'd like, ask Sarita a question, or maybe if you are a member of Love You, just let her know what you learned from Love You. So while we wait on that, I'm going to read. Chanel, thank you in advance for your comment. She said, my mother could never just apologize when I was a teen. And when she did something that warranted an apology, instead she would say, ooh, let's go shopping. Like she swept it under the rug. She even did this in my adulthood, and I'm 48.
Okay. Now, this is common. This is
Yeah,
common.
I can
Because,
relate.
a lot of our mothers, let me just keep it all the way real. If we have a parent that struggles with emotional immaturity, meaning because of their own trauma, they aren't aware of their emotions, they don't know how to identify emotions, they don't deal well with emotions, they will have a tendency to suppress. That is what the Black Superwoman does and did. And so if I'm basically numb to my own emotions because of everything I went through, I'm not going to be able to immediately validate or congratulate or to identify or respect your emotions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to show you love the best way that I know how. And that may be by giving to you, doing for you, saying, yeah, let's go shopping and spend time together. That's my way of saying, yeah, I know I did something wrong. But see, the problem is that we've experienced this, and a lot of us have, relationships with our mother where there's an inability to address the root cause or root issues. So what's going to happen when you get in a relationship? Most likely you will have a relationship with someone who don't know how to identify their emotions, who won't apologize, who never deals with the root. They will either make you responsible, blame you, or say, get over, forget about it, that was last week. Because that's a form of gaslighting. That's a form of reshaping reality. So I don't have to get vulnerable. I ain't got to break down into my emotions, and I don't want to see you do that either. So let's just move on. But what happens is the pattern, the cycle continues because no one ever tells the truth about what's happening.
Girl, do you know? I literally had an aha moment. I just thought about a relationship I had. Now I can tell he was totally emotionally unavailable, but this man was the best gift giver. And I fooled myself into thinking, oh, well, giving gifts, that's his love language.
And you did for yourself, and in a way that it was true too. Both things were true. That might have been
I'm
his love
confused.
language because it both could be true, right? It may not have been the for you the thing in a relationship that actually brought you closer together because there may not have been a lot of real intimacy, but that may have been how he learned to love based on how he was treated. Not to be vulnerable, not to talk about the issue, because talking about the issue and telling the truth about it means I got to take off my cape, my mask, my hat. You know what I'm saying? I got to get naked. So instead of doing that, let me give you something that I know you're gonna like because I know what you like because I done studied you enough, not your feelings, but the external stuff. And so that you will be so enamored with the gift that you will just move on and don't bug me about it. Don't ask about it. Don't bring it up because if you do, I'm gonna tell you we're good now. Why you want to keep bringing that up?
Exactly. And I would take the broom out of my parents' hands, and I was too sweep it under the rug. I mean,
Yeah,
we had brooms everywhere in the house
yeah, and a lot of rugs and plenty of closets,
and
as
tripped
most of
over
us
a
did.
lot of
And
everything. And if a bone fell out the closet, you just pick it up and put it back in that closet. And then you put some nice wallpaper over and make it look nice and pretty.
Make it look nice. Absolutely. Absolutely. So let me say this before we take any more questions from the chat. We had questions from people who previously posted.
Sure.
Can we talk about some of those? So when they watch, they'll know that we read the questions that they had.
Absolutely. Okay. I can get into one. She said, my mom and I are not close to one another like she is with my sisters. We've had some bad days, and that is in capital letters, bad days. How do I get through this when she doesn't want to talk about it or only acknowledge my faults? I will go on, but I am a sister with a real story. Thank you.
Absolutely. And I want to acknowledge all of my sisters out there because we all have real stories. And if nobody told you that your story is real and valid and important, that's what I'm here to do today. Because we often kind of again push our stuff under the rug and try to keep it moving. And so it can be challenging when you have when you can recognize that your mother might have her favorites or she might have a closer relationship with your siblings, but the reality is when it comes to families, the dysfunction can show up in all kinds of ways. And some families, instead of dealing with the issues or the parents or the mother dealing with their stuff, what they'll do is they'll scapegoat a child. And again, this is what a narcissist does. You know what I'm saying? They'll make the child the problem. And if the child wants to speak up or wants to express some of the things or call some of the secrets out, then it's not uncommon for that child to be made the black sheep, the one that has the problem, because they are really like the ones who are the truth tellers, the ones who are not okay with the silence or the shaming or basically the low key BS. And so there's different dynamics that families use to maintain their dysfunctional coping. And sometimes the children experience the brunt of that. And so if you have a child that plays the good child and they want to people please mom naturally will gravitate toward them and make the other children who are not on board with the lies and the ridiculousness, they'll make them the problem. And so when you said she doesn't acknowledge, I'm assuming you meant she does acknowledge her faults, and she probably doesn't know how. And the fact that if she's emotionally immature, if you bring up her faults, then you have a problem. You're being disrespectful.
Yeah, I
You're
was gonna say
being
that's disrespectful.
So
I'm the
that's
mother. I don't care if I'm 153 years old. I will always be your mother. I don't care that you're 93 years old. You're being disrespectful. Shut up. Hush.
and plenty of mothers are, part of our dysfunctional parenting that was passed down is that they believe that they should always be respected, regardless of what they do. And what they don't see is that's why they traumatized. Because ain't nobody damn respect them. Ain't nobody respect their needs, respect their wants, respect their voice. And then they pass that down as parenting. And we are the generation that is calling that out. Because if a child is not respected, they don't know how to respect themselves. That's how you learn respect, because you are respected, not because you're taught to respect everybody else. That's how people pleasers are made.
Wow. Woo.
See, I'm very passionate about that.
And I love it. I love you for that. And we love you for that. That's why you're always the show favorite. Let's go to another comment. All right. She said, my mom and I have never been close. Growing up, I swore she didn't like me. And there have been things she said to me that didn't show love. In my 20s and 30s, I didn't take shit from anyone. But in my 40s, all the self-doubt, fear, feelings, and unworthiness, self-esteem just seeped in. I love it. I've always thought it was fathers that affected us, but my mom has damaged me in ways I didn't know. Caller, I didn't know that either. Literally, I just found that out maybe 4 months ago in Cerita's class. I didn't know. I did not know. I focused so much on my father And little did I know it was there was an undercurrent. I truly had a blind spot. So I get it. And thank you for sharing that with us. Ooh, that
Yeah.
was powerful.
I really honor you and appreciate your vulnerability for that, because I know a lot of women can identify with that. And I can identify with that too, because I was a different person in my 20s. And then I got older. I'm like, are you taking shit now that you would never have tolerated? But I think that, let me rephrase this. I know that when it comes to our relationship with our mother, you've mentioned, and some of you probably have heard the term attachment, but our attachment to our mothers is in the first 2 to 3 years. They establish our bonds, our ability to trust, and our attachment to our parents is everything. And I mentioned this on our last podcast, that we are driven to attach because our
Mm,
survival depends on it. And so that means that we have to sacrifice ourselves, sacrifice our voice and our authenticity in many cases in order to bond with a parent who is emotionally immature, because that parent feels threatened. That parent has their own traumatic wounds. That parent may be looking to get their needs met through their child, because some parents have never known love except for the love of their child.
mm,
And so that means that if the parent getting their needs met is more important, then the child has never known what it means to get their needs met. So as you mature and you're getting into relationships, you really don't even know what it's like to get your needs met into a relationship. You might not even know your needs. You might not really have identified your feelings, because you're just basically like a person. Your identity has been conditioned around your traumatizing relationship with your mama. So you don't really know who you are. You don't really know what you want. You don't really know what you think. The shit that you're looking for in a partner can be very general and basic, but based on stuff you heard in TV or the dysfunctional relationships you saw your mama in.
woo,
And this is not
yes.
to blame her. This is to understand the impact of not getting what you need in a child. It creates everything that you said: self doubt, fear, feeling like an imposter, unworthiness, feeling misunderstood, feeling alone. These are all symptoms of a mother wound. So you're
Mm,
not broken, and we're not talking about this to blame your mother, but to understand the impact of having a bond that didn't serve all of your needs. How you can continue to search for those needs in other people, and how you can feel like there's something wrong with you, and you can learn to give it to yourself. That's what healing is about. And that's why you need to come to the Love You Challenge, because that's exactly what I'm going to be addressing and helping you to understand.
exactly. Because, like I just said, I didn't realize I had that blind spot. I had no idea. And I thought everything was because of the father wound.
Me too. And it was difficult for me because I love my mom. And despite my trauma, my mom, I, she's has so many wonderful qualities about her, and there was so many good things that she did teach me and give to me, but it was hard for me to see my wounds, because it was hard for me to recognize the ways that I was also damaged.
So I just thought of this. You had a slide in class, and I can't remember verbatim what you said, but you said that it was easier to look at your father's faults or anyone. It was easier to look at him as opposed to whatever mother wound that you had.
Yes, it was easier for me to place all the blame on my father, who was absent, basically, who abandoned me in my childhood. It was safer to hate him,
That's
to
what you
be
said.
disconnected from him. It was safe because, see, she was the one who was taking care of me. So lashing out at her, being angry at her for some things that she might have done or might have said, that threatened my survival. Okay. That threatened literally me having a roof over my head, because if you act out too much, you got to get out. You know what I'm saying? And so it was safer for me to project all of that energy. And it's not something that we do consciously, and to make him the total bad guy. He was my fall guy for a long time.
Ooh, that resonates. Before we go on to the next question, I just want to let everyone know that today is June 1st, and today is World Narcissistic Abuse Awareness Day. And this is a day that we dedicate to education, support, and effective change to narcissistic abuse. And as you talk, I hear a lot of narc vibes from our moms.
It's so funny because initially when I would say that, you would be like, "What? Mama, narcs, and me having narcs." So it's so.
I was like that.
What you would look like. Well, explain that. You know that you were giving me the go deeper on that, because and it's hard for us. It was hard for me to see some of the similarities, but we got to address the narc vibes in us as parents, as women, because it is those wounds that keep us attracting the narcs.
Yeah. That was a hard pill to swallow. I figured out in therapy. And I'm like, me? No. But I know with my healing helps when I have language and I can attach language to my behaviors or other people's behaviors, because I am a social person. That's a hard pill to swallow, but I have water now. It can go down.
I'm telling you, when you name, you can tame it. And see, I talk about this a lot in Love University and just even in my lives, because when we can see how the martyr, because a lot of us, we have that martyr energy, that sacrificing, that rescuing, that I do for you, I fix, I help. But that martyr energy, I'm not saying it is a narcissist. You are a narcissist, but there are qualities that you share with the narcissist, because a lot of us giving and doing and helping and feeling victimized because we're not setting boundaries, because we're attempting to give and do as a way of manipulating people into being loyal or to doing for us or to staying with us or to love us. And that is what trauma does. That's what trauma is. And a narcissist and a martyr, the root of their behavior is trauma. And it's crazy to me. It's sad to me that we have a culture that actually has to have a narcissistic abuse day, awareness day. That speaks volumes to the issues that we have with relating and also how we're loving our children.
Exactly. Speaking of that, we have another one. I was raised by my narcissist mom. When I was little, she loved me to death, but treated my sister not so equal, which made my sister never really care for me as kids. But as I got older to know when things wasn't right or done right, I would speak up. That goes back to what you just said, Cerita. I would speak up, and then from there, she discarded me. She would say and do mean things. And I will always say, I will never be like her when I have children, which I think I overcompensate with my daughters. But now I just never wanted to have that toxic relationship with my girls.
I honor you and I thank you for your comment and for your vulnerability, because that right there is exactly what can happen with an emotionally immature parent. If your mama can't tolerate any kind of what feels like criticism or, speaking up for yourself, that assertion, that advocating for yourself, which we all need to learn to do as human beings. If mamas feel threatened, then mama will do what a narcissist does, which will discard you. You're the problem. You're out of line. You're out of pocket. Because an emotionally immature parent wants you to be on their program, wants you to be in their role that they prescribe for you, so that you can be the one that they might live vicariously through. You're the people pleaser. You're the one meeting all their needs and showering them with attention. They can raise their children to be their own supply, their own
Mm.
source of validation. And when you're not on that program, then they will enter the discard, and they will feel very justified for it, because most likely that's how they were treated. And so to be able to recognize that and to be willing to speak up for yourself despite the consequences, that just speaks to your resilience and your ability to tell the truth, even if it hurt you. So I honor you for wanting to do better with your own children. Thank you for that, truly,
Yeah,
because
that's
that's break the cycle.
exactly. And that's so powerful. So powerful. Let me do one thing. We're going to read another caller question. But before I do that, I just dropped the link again, a live link. If anyone would love to come on, or feel free to continue to put your comments in the comment thread. And I do see them, everyone, but we're going to handle the other ones that came in. Okay. All right. The caller said, "Hi, Mrs. Cerita.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Is it plausible that an individual may seek out relationships with narcissists because their mother was a narcissist?" And there's a few parts to the question. Did you want me to keep going, or? And would they need that same type of interaction to feel loved? And how does a relationship with a narcissistic mother influence life and relationship choices? That is an excellent question.
It is an excellent question.
Ooh,
Honestly,
excellent.
this question is why the Love You Challenge exists. Because I'm going to spend 5 days explaining all of this. And yes, show up. But let me answer some of this right now. Okay. It is
Yes.
not only plausible that if you are raised by a mother with narcissistic tendencies, that you will seek out narcissists. It is highly likely you will. Because see, human beings, we learn how to love. We learn love. It's a thing that, yes, we are born and hardwired to connect with people, but the quality of that connection will be based on your relationship with your mama, your relationship with your parents, your mother first, because you came out of her womb. And as I've heard a psychologist say, I forget her name, that nature is a taskmaster. So research has shown, even if a baby is given to like another loving mother that wasn't her biological mother, there are still wounds that develop. There's still a sense of abandonment, of being unloved, that research shows. Nature requires us to have that bond with our biological mother, even if we aren't consciously aware of it. There's something in you, there's a wisdom in you that needs that connection. And so when a mother is not emotionally mature, and I keep using that word because you can have a mother who you may not even remotely considered to be have narcissistic traits, but she herself did not have the emotional maturity to validate your emotions, to help you understand your emotions, to respect your emotions. That's emotionally immature. And so that cycle that happens or can happen with an emotionally immature parent, which will be the idealizing and then the devaluing and discard, that will be that will very likely be your blueprint for relationships. So you will attract those dynamics because that is your blueprint for how to love. Like, if some people, if they grow up in these dynamics, it's very chaotic, it's very unpredictable. So if they meet
Ooh,
someone who's very stable and secure and just very chill, they're gonna be like, "Oh, he's boring as hell, girl.
boring.
It's
He,
not good for him. It's just I'm not attracted. I don't really like him like that. We could be friends." And that's because you don't even realize that your baseline is set at chaos. is set at being inconsistent and unpredictable. And you feel that and receive that as love and chemistry. Trauma will
Mm,
have you thinking that's chemistry, but really it's crazy.
right. And I like what you said about our baseline being chaos and the dramatics of it all.
The
Because
drama.
the drama, because then it just replays. It is a continuous cycle. And I feel that some of us don't see it because the partner may change, but the chaos is consistent.
It'll be a same chaos, different penis. And if it's a girl, be a same chaos, different body, different
Exactly.
personality. But the dynamics of the relationship will be the same because human beings love in a way that is familiar. And that's why if a child grows up, and this is why we got to heal. We got to heal. Because if a female child grows up, research shows if she grows up in an environment where she is witnessing her mother with, experiencing intimate partner violence, it is likely that, and not always, but it is likely that she will grow up attracting partners who may be emotionally violent, who may be physically violent, who may be violent with their words, because that dynamic has become the pattern. And women will identify with the abuse. But see, now a man or a boy, a male child growing up in the dynamic, he will do what's called introjection and identify with the abuser.
What is
So
that called again? Intro what?
introjection, it's a defense mechanism. I'm giving you the psychology terms, okay?
Oh,
So that identification, taking on those beliefs, ideas, those ways of being, so they are identifying with the abuser as an attempt to stay safe, as an attempt to not be hurt, as an attempt to
Stockholm
maintain
syndrome.
power. Well,
No?
no.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
because we'll see, people identify women in those abusive situations as having Stockholm syndrome. And I will say that there can be some truth to that. The idea of Stockholm syndrome has been debunked by some researchers, but the premise is generally the same, that in an effort to stay safe, I can identify with either being abused or being the abuser, because the whole you when you're in a traumatic situation, it's about survival, and you will
Right.
do what you need to do in order to survive. The problem is that those trauma responses become a part of your personality, and it becomes the way that you relate.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
It does. If anything sounds familiar, and I know it does, please drop some light bulb emojis. Those are our aha moments. Or if it's easier, just to press one and drop it in the comments. I would love to read some of the comments and love that you're getting, Sarita. So,
Yay.
okay, well, there's a lot of ones already coming up.
Yay.
And let's see. Oh, Candy. Hey, Candy. Candy's
Hey.
been on my show. Oh, she's adorable. She says, coming through to show some love. Yes.
Yes, I appreciate
Ma'am.
that. We
Yeah.
appreciate that.
She said, amazing topic. Okay. Blind guy and his wife. I know that a lot of our mothers would have been more loving, empathetic, and nurturing if they had better experiences themselves.
Absolutely.
Society and circumstance has affected so much.
That's absolutely true. Absolutely. You know,
Facts, 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 facts. Let's
right.
see. Lioness. When I was a child, I thought my mother was the devil. Woo.
That says a lot. And honestly, I hope that you honor your inner child, the child within, to show that child all the love and the divine energy and the unconditional presence, showing up for yourself, because that means that you were hurt in your relationship with your mother, and your healing basically requires you to rebuild that healthy relationship with yourself.
Mm. I'd like to answer this next question from Lioness as well. She said, is it possible to fully heal from mother traumas, even if I want to continue to not have a relationship with her? So I'm just giving my experience. Matter of fact, I'm gonna throw in a bonus. I will throw in my father. I have decided for a few years now to go no contact for the betterment of my own mental health and well-being. And I won't say I'm fully healed, but I'm healing. It is so possible. It is very attainable. Now, with my mother, I'm healing from that because I'm still literally in real time, my blind spots are being uncovered. But I feel it's whatever work you want to put into your own healing, that anything is possible. Anything. Because with my experience, I did not see my mother as a human being. She was literally Mother Teresa with melanin skin. And I didn't even think she walked. I felt like she literally floated an inch off the ground. So for me to see my mother as a human, and it's a lot. But to answer your question, yes, it is possible. It's just how bad you want her, how much you're willing to learn, and how comfortable you feel on uncovering the blind spots that you do not see. I'll land my
And,
plane right there.
and that is thank you. Thank you so much for that, because that's real and that's what healing looks like. I would also add that healing your mother trauma is not even really about your mother. It's about understanding how your relationship with your mother has impacted your relationship with yourself. So your healing is about you, is about you healing the parts of you that were hurt or that are trying to protect you from hurt, the parts of you that feel insecure or inadequate. No one else can do that for you, not even your mother. And so what you choose to do in terms of your relationship with your mother is based on you, is based on how she treats you or interacts with you, or based on what you want and need. But the healing has nothing to do with her, because it's not about you trying to change her. It's about how you trying to change the things that you've learned about yourself based on your relationship with her.
Yes. And having those mental boundaries from within.
Absolutely.
Whew. I felt that one. I just want to hug Lioness because I get it. Do you feel the hug and the love, Lioness, I'm sending you?
Oh,
Nikki B, I think of myself as a progressive parent and all my kids to have an opinion and or choice when an issue presents itself. But at times my 13-year-old daughter has such a sense of self that her tone can be that of a 25-year-old. How do I reel her back in without stepping into the my way or the highway type of parenting? That's a great
so
question.
keep that question up for a second.
Sure.
And so you said, I think of myself, and first of all, let me thank you for the question, as a progressive parent, and all my kids have an opinion or choice when an issue presents itself. So your daughter's 13, and she has a sense of self that her tone, I would love to hear more about the tone, okay?
Yeah.
Because see, many of us, us sisters and our children have been taught that we need a certain tone that is respectful when we talk to our parents. So is it her energy? Is it her voice? Is it her words? Is it, you know what I'm saying? She's getting what can feel like aggressive. Explain that, because that whole idea of tone can be her tone, but I wonder if there's some residual for what you are thinking of is respectful or not. And
Mm.
so, how do you reel her back in? Tell me a little bit more, like, why do you think she needs to be reeled back in? Do you want her to express herself to you in a certain way? What do you think that she needs? What are the boundaries that you think she needs to have when she's communicating with you? Because we want children to be respectful, but we also, as Black women, have to be able to understand how we think about respect. Because some of our ideas about respect are rooted in our trauma and not actually in what the child is doing or saying. And that's
Mm.
what I think it means to be conscious. Because I have a 4-year-old, and do I think are there things that she does that previous generations would view as disrespectful? Absolutely. But I also understand that the way that she behaves is because she's limited by her 4-year-old brain that is not hardly even developed. You know what I'm saying? She could barely say a sentence without you know what I'm saying? And she's fighting for her autonomy because that's what they do at this age. They're figuring out themselves what they like. They want to do things on their own. So that means I'm gonna need to tell you, mama, leave me alone. Stop. Mama, stop telling me what to do. Because that's part of what a human being is trying to figure out in this world. And we got to give them the space to do that, or they will be in here in Love University taking classes at 40 years old, trying to figure out who they are because they didn't get to do it when they was 3 years old or 13. Children have to know that they have the power and the ability to speak for themselves and stand up for themselves without being crushed. That's why so many Black women have low self-esteem right now.
Wow.
So I welcome your thoughts about that.
Yeah, and definitely put them in, Nikki B, if you are still in the chat. We definitely want to
Yeah, and
hear.
if she wants to come on and talk about it, we got a little bit of time.
We
So we
sure
can talk
do.
about it.
And I
This is
just
what it is. Okay.
exactly. And I just posted the link. So Nikki B, if you'd like to come on and give a little more clarity. But while we wait on her response, Blind Guy and his wife said, how do we quietly forgive our mothers in our lives? Sisters, friends, moms that we know are a result of their life traumas. Quietly forgive, as in be okay with whatever and move on.
So I would say that in order to free oneself, you don't need to quietly forgive. You need to be loud about it. But see, here's the thing. I think that when you understand what the women in your life have gone through and that they truly have done the best they could with what they had and with what they knew how. And some of these women have never known what it meant to be loved or respected. So they don't know how to love and respect other people. And so you can forgive them and still set boundaries. You can say, I understand why you are the way you are, but it's not okay to be the way you are with me. So you can acknowledge them for who they are and their capacity and let them know what your standards are. It doesn't mean because someone's traumatized that they get to discharge and punish you because they don't know how to deal with their own wounds. So you got to
Exactly.
set a standard for everybody in your life, because otherwise you are sacrificing yourself for them and you will pay for it, because that betrayal, it haunts you. It impacts everything that you do. So it will come down. It's either you or them, and you got to make a choice out of love and self-preservation, not from pain or hate.
Let me share something with you. I told my therapist this a few years ago when I started realizing that I could have had a mother wound, but I didn't have language for it till I started with you. But when I started realizing certain things, like the blind spot was starting to become a little clear. And I remember I told her, there's this movie, I think The Good Son, and the mom, remember that? And she's
Mhm.
holding the good son, and here we go. And I guess the nephew, I don't know, but she had two of those little boys hanging over the cliff. And
Yeah.
she had to make a decision which hand was she going to let go. And whatever decision it was, she had to live with that decision. And I told my therapist that, and she just looked at me. I don't know what that look meant, but that was an aha moment. And when you said, well, it's either you or them, I'm like, oof.
I mean, when it comes to a relationship where someone is hurting you or violating you, it is you or them. And sometimes we will sacrifice ourselves in order to maintain connections, whether it's because we love them, whether it's because we don't know how to speak up, or whether it's that we've learned this is love. You know, we don't want to deal with the consequences of setting boundaries. The reality is you have to choose that, because some of us are in a lot of pain, not because other people have hurt us, but because we betray ourselves over and over and over
Yeah.
again. And that is like a soul murder. Like you are literally killing off parts of yourself in order to
Mhm.
maintain these toxic bonds.
Just like
So
you said, self-abuse.
we can love people, but we also have to love ourselves enough to be treated the way we need to be treated.
Jasmine. Jasmine said, I thought I had healed my mother wounds because I've always had mother figures. However, when I had my daughter, it opened up the floodgates again. Sarita, I had to take off my cape and realize that I'm not my mom. I will parent my daughter, respect her, and listen to her, even at 4. Her opinion matters. I also realize my mother can't be something to me she doesn't know how, and because of her addiction, she will never be able to. That sounds like radical acceptance to me. Woo.
I thank you so much, Jasmine. I do. I thank you for your courage and your vulnerability here. Because see, the thing is, I didn't know that I had mother wounds. You know what I'm saying? I didn't know I had a whole lot of shit, but I knew something was wrong. And so what happens is we know from trauma research that new life experiences, especially having a child, will trigger up all the wounds in you. I know because I got a 4-year-old too. And so it is a natural part of the process that your child will trigger in you unhealed wounds. And this is why some of us are traumatized because our parents didn't have the tools we have. They didn't have therapy. They didn't have social media. You know what I'm saying? They didn't They had Google. So they didn't realize, they weren't conscious of the fact that their trauma was being triggered in their children. And so a lot of us suffered because we were made bad or wrong for their own unhealed wounds, for their generational trauma. And
Wow.
so for you to recognize that your trauma is being triggered says a lot about your awareness, says a lot about you continuing to do the healing work. And it's important for you to understand this is a part of the process. So there's a balance that you have to learn how to, when the wounds show up, meet your needs, ask for what you want, get support. If you haven't been to my Love You Challenge, show up because we dealing with all this. And for you to also meet your child's needs. And see, you said in the comment that her opinion matters even at 4. Her opinion matters especially at 4. Okay.
Yeah.
So a child's opinion, for a healthy child, her opinion always needs to matter because that's how she develops the sense that I matter. That's how it's done. That's how it works in human beings. And so continue to do that. And there are times where you're going to get it wrong. You're going to make a mistake. You're going to take things out on her. The goal should be for every parent is to learn how to repair, to take responsibility, to
Yes.
apologize, to explain. Because I have done it with my 4-year-old. I will say, mommy got upset and my feelings are my responsibility. I tell her that because she needs to understand that it's not her job to take care of me and my,
Right. Because
'cause it's
that will
her.
stop the toxic shame that you talk about.
It will create toxic shame in her and it will create people pleasing in her. And it will create the idea that she needs to be responsible for mommy's feelings. And she needs to be responsible for learning how to express her own feelings in a healthy way, not take care of mine. You see what I'm saying?
Oh, yes.
She needs to be able to call out and say, that's not my fault. That's not my problem. That's not my responsibility. Now, you may not know how to do that at 4, but to be able to understand that she's a whole person and I'm a whole person and we can be in a relationship together, even when she's 4, especially when she's 4, because this is the critical periods for children.
Let's see. Jasmine, she's also relating to what I forgot her name. What Nikki B had said. That Jasmine, she said, me too, being a former preschool teacher for over 15 years has taught me to see children's values as we do others. My baby is 4, but sometimes I have to remind myself she is still a baby trying to navigate her own autonomy. But that mouth, though, prayers.
Girl, listen. I pray for you. I pray for me. I pray and when I'm having conversations with my child. Like I be like, okay, Lord help me. I got to pause. This is what I do. And this is what I suggest for any parent. Like I have to pause. Because see, my reactions are based in trauma from my own trauma. So my reaction would be to beat that ass or let her know who is the boss. Like I told her one time, I said, don't touch my TV. Because she was like, She said, it's not your TV, it's ours. And I
Oh,
had to take a pause. And I said, you know what? You're right. It's our TV. And because it's our TV, you need to respect it by not throwing your toys at it.
oh, that was real good.
But I wanted to let her know that, because this is the thing I want to say to all of us parents, my sisters. We have to let our children know that they have a home. They have a home base, that they belong somewhere. Because so many of us, we never felt like we truly belonged. So there is a balance between that mouth and also in teaching them what is correct without shaming, without
Yeah.
making them bad, because that toxic shame will set in and they will forever struggle with this idea that I'm defective.
Mm-hmm.
The mouth
Exactly.
is real though. My baby told me, Mommy, you tell me what to do too much. Basically, she said, telling me I'm controlling. But I had to explain to her, I said, it's my job to tell you what to do to keep you safe. And it's my job to listen to you as well. So it's your job for me to listen to you, but also for you to listen. This is a partnership, and you still got responsibilities out forward. It ain't much, but you got responsibilities. You want kindness and respect, you got to learn to give it. And that's what I tell her. That's what I
Wow.
would tell any human being.
Right. And it goes back to what Jasmine just said. Queen Lisa, I have forgiven my mom. I'm just dealing with the effects of it. I'm so messed up, in all honesty, desperate for affection and validation from people pleasing, caretaking. I go overboard in all relationships. I need to find my voice. I was physically, mentally, and emotionally abused, shut down, and controlled. Ooh, thank you for that, Queen Lisa. Being
Truly.
honest and open. That's a lot.
I honor you for that. And you know what? I hope that you can even understand how important it is that you even recognize that you are desperate for affection and validation, because so many of us don't. We just
No.
will work harder in relationships and we won't acknowledge it. Can you put that back up for a second?
Yes, ma'am.
Um, and the fact that you recognize that you go overboard and
Mm.
that you need to find your voice, like the awareness is so important, is so key, and it says a lot about who you are and the work that you are doing. So I encourage you to show up and come to the challenge, because this is exactly what we're tackling. And so the thing is, you the opportunity here is for you to learn how to give the affection and the validation that you're desperate for. Because if I'm going to give you the real world, your inner child is desperate for the validation from you. Your inner
Mhm.
child is desperate for the acknowledgement from you. Because once we become an adult, it is our responsibility to care for ourselves, because you will never, there's no one else that can meet that need the way you needed it met when you were a child. That cannot
Wow.
happen. The time is over. No one is capable of giving you that unconditional love that you are seeking. Because guess what? They got a bunch of shit too. They got trauma too. They trying to get their needs met through you. Can't nobody, because what we are asking for when we are traumatized is we would be asking for someone else to please sacrifice yourself for me so that I
Ooh.
can feel good about myself. That's what a narcissist does. It can never work. The healing is for you to learn to give it to yourself. That is the imperative. That is your work. That is your purpose, to give you the love that you've needed, because that then everything else is released and you will flourish and you will have that relationship with yourself. So naturally, your relationship with other people will change. Come through the love through challenge, baby. I'm breaking it all the way down.
Yes. And you all, everybody stay tuned, because we're going to give details about the Love You Challenge. A few more questions. Oh, Queen Lisa also said, I have always thought something was wrong with me, desperate for affection. I stayed in very toxic relationships because I was starving for affection. I'm very protective of children. I can understand why.
Thank you for protecting the babies, baby, because we all need to be protecting our children. Like, that is part of our responsibility. And so that same protection from children, I'm gonna tell you the truth. The real is that you are protective of children that way because that is exactly what you needed to for yourself, and that is what you must give yourself because you're not protecting yourself when you're staying in toxic relationships. You're not protecting yourself when you're giving to people who can't give to you. You are sacrificing yourself, thus doing the very thing that was done to you in your own trauma. And you deserve your own love, baby. You deserve that protection that you give to the babies. And that means that you must find your voice. Come through. Come through the Love You Challenge. That's what I'm doing.
She said this is really helping her. So Lioness said, thank you, ladies, for your answers. I'm just sick of people telling me I haven't forgiven and can't heal without their presence. Thank you for the hug. Oh, she received a hug.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yes. To get all the hugs and tell people to mind their damn business. They need to be worried about their own trauma, their own mamas, their own feelings, and their own bullshit. And you probably need to quit talking to people who telling you what you need to do and how you need to do it. And you just got to focus on your relationship with yourself. Because so many people be giving goddamn advice that they don't even apply to their own life. You see what I'm saying?
Exactly.
That's why I don't give advice. I speak science. Okay. Don't give advice. So I love you and I thank you for that.
Sunday said, that's a good question because I recently disconnected from my mother because every conversation was triggering. Once I'm in a better space, I'll reach out. Sunday, get out of my head. She's all in my head.
And that's important to be able to discern for yourself. Truly, it's important for you to be able to recognize what you need and see if you're triggered. That means that you have a past learned experience. So the opportunity is for you to continue to do the work with what's coming up, because she is not. When we're triggered, we're responsible for our own triggers. That's how we become empowered in our own life. And so when you can deal with your triggers, or when you can take responsibility for them in conversation with her, then it will become easier. But in the meantime, you got to do what you got to do.
Self-preservation is the first order of nature.
Yeah, that's right. And a lot of us sisters, we don't practice it.
Not at all. And Angela, hello, Angela. She said, Cerita, as a fellow LMSW, so marriage, social worker, licensed marriage social worker.
She is licensed, yes, licensed master social worker. Hey, baby. Hey, twinnie.
You are the authentic truth times the queenth degree. You are glowing in your purpose and is.
You know what? Girl, you got my eyes watering up. I just want to thank you. As a fellow LMSW, I want to thank you just for showing up, because you ain't got to be here, you know what I'm saying? And for being support and being loving for no reason, you know what I'm saying, other than purpose. So I thank you for seeing me, okay? And I see you too, because real recognize real, baby. So I thank you so much for that. I thank you. You might need to PM me or something, or DM me so we can chat,
Yes. A few more I'd like to read before we start wrapping up. Shondella said, for years, I couldn't even utter what emotions I was feeling. I never allowed me to show myself any love. I put everyone else ahead of me.
That's learned behavior. A lot of us say, that's just how I am. No, you learned that, boo. You learned that, because what child puts everyone's needs before theirs? It's natural for us to ask for what we want, for what we need, to demand it, to express it in some capacity. And so it's learned. And so we can unlearn. Part of the healing process is unlearning those things, where we maintain our empathy and compassion, but we also make room, the necessary room, to receive, to allow, to be vulnerable, and let people support us, because that's what we want anyway.
Exactly. All right, a few more. T-Shawn Tan said, Would you continue to attend family gatherings even though you know without a doubt you have to deal with certain individuals? If so, will silence be wrong? May I answer that? No. That's it.
I just want to know why the hell you want to go somewhere where you got to be silent. So I think, there are some people who want to, some people want to maintain bonds with certain people. And there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not here to judge that or tell you what to do. I do encourage you to make whatever decision you're going to make out of integrity for yourself, for you to understand who your audience is, who they are, what their capacity is. Because I got family that I know them. I know what they're about. And when I am in their presence, I know what I'm going to get and I know who I'm going to be. But I have to make a decision how much I want to interact, because interacting on certain levels means I have to sacrifice myself. And so that's the decision that you have to clearly make, keeping you and your needs in mind. And there's nothing wrong with meeting people where they are if that's what you choose to do. But if it's very uncomfortable where you're sacrificing yourself, then you may have to decide, is that what is best for you?
Exactly. So well said. We're going to start wrapping it up. But before we do, if you all, well, this is being streamed a few different places. So if you don't see it, I want you to please subscribe to the channel. This is Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. You can always Google search it in YouTube. There should be a link, direct link to it. I want you to subscribe to the channel. Go back maybe 6 episodes back. Cerita and I did an amazing episode. It was about setting boundaries with toxic older people. So what we're talking about, it was just literally the skin of what we really dug deep into, because today was really about mother-daughter. But I mean, they are older people. I don't care how old we are, but she takes a deep dive into and the questions were flowing over there. So make sure, go back and take a look at that. And if you are not in love, and if you hear some people who have some awareness, or we're having these aha moments, more than likely we have taken her Love You challenge as well as enrolled in Love You. And that's where all the, like I said, the aha moments come in. And when you can put language to what you've been feeling, it makes so much sense. And that's healing. That's when the healing comes. So right here is the free 5-day challenge, and we'll let Cerita take over.
Yes. Can you post a link in the chat? It's loveyouchallenge.com. Listen, my sisters, my family, I'm hosting this Love You Challenge June 6th, and it is all about getting to the root of understanding how trauma has impacted you. How have your mother wounds shaped you? How has it influenced the way that you think, and definitely your relationships? We are going into deep in explaining the root of unworthiness and how it's passed down. I am going to be explaining how manipulators use your wounds to control you. There are very specific ways that they trigger you, that they are able to trigger your fear of abandonment and your core beliefs, the way you think about yourself that has developed as a result of your trauma, and how that is showing up and determining and dictating who you are attracted to and how you act in relationships. We like to think that we're adults, okay, because we done reached a certain age and we can sign some damn contracts and get a bank account. But the truth is, so much of who we are is just a regurgitation of what we experienced in our childhoods. It's like when I really became aware of how much I was unaware, it was astounding. I was thinking I was running around here conscious, reading all these books and taking all these damn classes. As soon as I get out the goddamn class, I was out here doing the same thing, coping the same way, feeling the same unworthiness that I was feeling since 5, 7 years old, having damn tantrums when I didn't get my way because I didn't even know how to express and communicate. And so it's time for us to literally grow up and take responsibilities for our souls, for our experiences, and our relationships. Because if you just attracting ain't shit people, then we got to look at the source of the attract. What is the attraction factor in here? What is your heart looking like? And if the heart is hardened or missing in action, we got work to do. Come through. LoveYouChallenge.com. I don't play. We're not gonna be doing no affirmations, okay? We're not gonna be doing that. We peeling back all of the layers. I don't know what they doing out here, but I know what we do in Love You. It don't get no realer.
Oh my God. I put a live link to our setting boundaries for toxic older people in the chat right now. So you all can just click right over and you can get some good gems are being dropped over there. So
Did you put in the link, YouLoveYouChallenge.com?
Oh.
Because that's what you were supposed to be linking.
You know
Love
what?
You Challenge. Yes, you can put that link in there, or LoveYouChallenge.com. Both will take you to the same place.
Yes.
Sign up. It's free. I know you ain't been through nothing like it. You ain't. I'm the one you've been looking for, okay? And I'm gonna help you find you the soulmate you've been looking for. I'm the it. I'm it, baby.
He said, I'm
it. Here, ride or die for my sisters. I ride.
LoveYouChallenge.com.
Yes.
There it is. Those are all live links. Just click on it, subscribe, sign up. Okay, Joyful Love.
Hey,
I
can see you already vibing when you got a name like Joyful Love. I can't wait to meet you.
She said she's excited for this growth.
Yes, bring all that energy. You know what I'm saying? That BLE, that big love energy, baby.
Oh, I like that. BLE. I love it. Before we get off, anyone listening, if you had any aha moments, or if you want Cerita to come back, drop a 1 in the comment section. Come on. Drop those ones. And that means you'll have to come back, Cerita. I'm just saying.
I know you love me. I love y'all too.
Any parting words before we depart or press pause?
I just want to thank all of you. I want to thank all of you for just being willing to show up for you, for being willing to do something different, for being willing to love you, for being willing to tell the damn truth. Okay. Mm-hmm. I just thank you, because we really are creating a new legacy for ourselves and for our children. And it's just amazing to see my sisters, how loving we are to one another, how committed we are to the work and the healing journey. And I think that, listen, I talk a lot about trauma, but I always have to mention the miracle that you are. All of you are so wonderful, despite your trauma, despite the things that you've experienced. You've created things, you've manifested, you've been ambitious and making things happen and moving mountains for other people. And so as you continue to heal and you do that deep healing, it's amazing what else you can accomplish, because I know it's going to be Black women who change the world, okay? Because we already been doing it.
Right.
So I believe in you, and I'm grateful for you, and I'm grateful for that you allow me to join you on this loving journey. So I look forward to you being in the challenge.
I appreciate it. And I'll be in the challenge for sure.
I'd love to have you.
What we do. Whew, I feel nice and full. I was very sleepy. I'm still tired just from my workout, but internally I feel energized.
That's
full of love. Full of love. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe, like the channel, Black Girls Getting Their Shift Together. Make sure you sign up for Love You. You already see what this is coming with. And thank you for dropping the ones. And we will see you at our next podcast.
I love you all. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see you.
Thanks, Cerita.
Bye.